Tommy Rees's fingerprints are all over Shedeur Sanders' recent success, and that's exactly what made Bobby Musgrave's comment so loaded. While praising Rees for crafting systems that played to Sanders' strengths, Musgrave repeatedly left Kevin Stefanski out of the conversation. That wasn't accidental. The way Musgrave talked about coaching contributions and omissions made one thing clear. The internal rift over Sanders' development is no longer a rumor. It's out in the open, and the damage from those early missteps still lingers.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Sanders wasn't supposed to be a factor this year. Organizational choices made that clear. But he refused to stay quiet, and his performance is now demanding a complete reevaluation of how talent is nurtured or suppressed. Inside this, Musgrave's comments weren't a one-off defense. They were a signal that leadership gaps and flawed philosophies have been holding this team back. If Sanders keeps progressing, it won't just redeem his name. It'll indict the decisions that nearly buried it. The Cleveland Browns have seen their fair share of quarterback drama over the years, but this one hits different. Because this time, the chaos didn't come from the fans, or the media, or even a locker room blow-up. It came from inside the building, directly from the quarterback coach himself. Bobby Musgrave stepped up to the mic and lit a slow-burning fire under the Browns' entire quarterback development strategy and Kevin Stefanski's leadership. Let's get to the core of what just happened. Musgrave, who's worked with NFL quarterbacks for years, basically put the Browns on public notice. And he didn't need to shout or name names. He just stated facts, laid out a timeline, and let the implications hit like bricks. Shedeur Sanders, a rookie quarterback with clear high-level potential, spent most of the season stuck as the team's fourth-string option, not developmental backup, not emergency depth. Fourth, that's not just a position. That's a message, and it was the wrong one. Musgrave didn't hold back when addressing that. In fact, his whole press conference was a subtle but strategic dismantling of how Stefanski and the staff handled Sanders' early career. Because while the public narrative leaned into the idea that Shedeur wasn't ready, Musgrave made it crystal clear. Shedeur was never given a real chance to get ready. And when he finally started seeing game action, that raw talent, that potential, it started showing up immediately. That's not coincidence. That's development that's been brewing under the surface. Without proper support from the top, Musgrave gave credit where it was due. Offensive coordinator Tommy Rees got praise for building smart, quarterback-friendly schemes that gave Shedeur a real platform to succeed. But Stefanski, the head coach, Musgrave didn't even acknowledge him. That wasn't accidental. That was surgical. That was the kind of silence that says more than words ever could. Because let's be honest, Stefanski's decision to bury Shedeur wasn't about one bad practice or an off throw in preseason. It was philosophical. It was a coaching choice to value polish over progress, optics over upside. And Musgrave finally said what people around the league were already starting to whisper. That approach doesn't work. And it's not just about playing time. It's about trajectory, representatives' confidence, real-time growth, all the things rookie quarterbacks need if they're going to make the leap from raw prospect to franchise centerpiece. Musgrave emphasized this over and over again. Shedeur's progress didn't come from some miracle turnaround. It came from doing the hard work every single day, even while being sidelined. He earned it. The fact that he had to do that from the bottom of the depth chart, that's the real failure here. And let's not skip over what Musgrave did when he compared Sanders' early developmental curve to John Elway. That's not just a lofty name drop. That was a deliberate reference to remind everyone that rookie growing pains are normal, especially for quarterbacks. Elway had to learn on the job. So did almost every elite signal caller. Pocket drifting, defensive adjustments, timing, these aren't signs of incompetence. They're signs of inexperience. And the only cure for that? Reps. Musgrave is clearly fed up with the idea that rookies need to be pristine before they can even get on the field. That mindset, it's outdated. And in Shedeur's case, it almost cost him a season of valuable... Now, to be clear, Musgrave didn't frame this as a total disaster. He made it a point to emphasize that Shedeur is still on track to become a franchise quarterback. The tools are there. The growth is there. The work ethic is undeniable. But what isn't there, or at least hasn't been, is a unified organizational commitment to his development. And that lack of alignment, it's showing. When the quarterback coach is praising the offensive coordinator and completely omitting the head coach from the conversation, that's a glaring sign of internal dysfunction. Coaching hierarchies are supposed to operate as a team. But this looks like a fractured operation, with pockets of development happening in spite of, not because of, Stefanski's leadership. And Musgrave didn't leave the future out of conversation either. That one quote, "We'll get to the crux of the matters in the off-season," should make everyone in the building uncomfortable. That's not a throwaway line. That's a warning. That's a signal that big conversations are coming, and that the way Shedeur's been handled will be at the center of them. Because this isn't just about one player. This is about culture, about how the Browns evaluate and treat young talent, about whether they're a team that builds toward the future or one that keeps mismanaging it. And let's not ignore the fact that this all happened in public. Musgrave could have kept it vague. He could have said it all behind closed doors. But he didn't. He sat in front of cameras and said it out loud. That tells you everything about the level of frustration brewing within the coaching staff. And once that frustration goes public, there's no walking it back. The Browns now have a clear decision to make. Either they recognize the dysfunction and fix it, or they risk creating an environment where even their most promising young players, like Shedeur Sanders, can't reach their full potential. Because you can't afford to keep stunting quarterback growth. Not in this league. Not in a division stacked with elite arms. And not when you finally have a guy with real tools and a professional approach. The fact that Shedeur is still progressing, despite all of this, should tell you just how legit he is. He's got the arm, the mobility, the processing, and the poise. He's shown it in clutch moments. He's shown it under pressure. But more importantly, he's shown that he's willing to grow, even in a system that didn't support him early on. That's what makes Musgrave's defense so powerful. He wasn't lobbying for special treatment. He was demanding fair treatment, a chance, a runway, the basic support every young quarterback needs to succeed. And what's wild is that this isn't even the first time Cleveland's been here. The Browns have cycled through quarterbacks, coaching staffs, and rebuilds like clockwork. And every time it's the same story. Misread talent, poorly timed decisions, and leadership that refuses to adapt. This time, though, they might not get another reset. If Shedeur turns out to be the real deal, and all signs are pointing that way, they can't afford to mess this up. The stakes are too high. The patience is running out. And Musgrave just pulled a fire alarm for anyone still pretending things are fine. So what happens next? Will the Browns finally shift their development mindset? Will Stefanski own his role in holding back one of the most promising young QBs on the roster? Or will the team keep leaning on old-school thinking and risk driving a wedge even deeper between its coaching staff? Let us know what you think. Should Shedeur have been playing earlier? Did Musgrave go too far or not far enough? And what does this mean for Stefanski's future with the team? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if you're tired of watching organizational politics get in the way of talent. And make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming next, because this offseason in Cleveland is about to be anything but quiet. And the clock is ticking. Because what Bobby Musgrave did wasn't just a sideline soundbite. It was a full-on shift in tone inside the Browns organization, and maybe the first honest moment this team has had all year, after months of staying quiet, towing the company line, and watching Shedeur Sanders quietly fight to prove himself behind the scenes. Musgrave finally said what everyone in the building has likely known for a while. The Browns mishandled their most promising. Let's not pretend this is just another rookie growing pain story. This isn't about a kid learning the ropes and earning his stripes. This is about decisions and who made them. It's about the fact that Shedeur wasn't simply underdeveloped or underprepared. He was undervalued. And that doesn't happen by accident. It happens when a head coach, in this case, Kevin Stefanski, buys into an evaluation and refuses to budge. It happens when preseason issues like pocket drifting are treated like permanent red flags rather than fixable traits. And it happens when you place a talented rookie fourth on the depth chart, not because of performance, but because of perception. Musgrave didn't name names. He didn't need to, by praising offensive coordinator Tommy Reed for his hands-on role in building game plans and supporting Shedeur's in-game development. And by never once crediting Stefanski, Musgrave painted a picture with precision. The people who actually developed Shedeur, they were working around a system that kept him buried. That kind of passive resistance tells you everything you need to know. It tells you that inside the Browns locker room, inside the QB room, there's a fracture. Some coaches are trying to build. Others are trying to manage optics. And unfortunately, that split nearly cost Shedeur his rookie year. You know what makes it even worse? Shedeur has been doing everything right, quietly, without complaining, without lashing out, and without leaking anything to the media. He's been working, improving his timing, his footwork, his rhythm, making clutch throws when given the chance, holding his own in late game drives, stepping up without the system ever stepping up for him. And now we know he didn't improve because of some magic moment. He improved because he worked through it. Because, as Musgrave put it, Shedeur's development came from his own effort, not from some grand master plan orchestrated by the head coach. That's where the anger comes in. Not the kind you yell about, but the kind that builds when you realize how close someone came being completely wasted. This wasn't about a lack of talent. It was about access to opportunity. A rookie quarterback doesn't get better sitting on the sideline behind three other names. He gets better by being coached, by being thrown into real situations, by learning in real time. That didn't happen, not early enough. And Musgrave was clearly done pretending that was okay. Let's talk about that. We'll get to the crux of the matters in the offseason comment again, because that wasn't coach speak. That was code for, we're not done here. Musgrave's not just suggesting a postseason film session. He's calling for a philosophical overhaul. A real conversation about who's guiding this team's future. And that starts with the quarterback position. Because of a guy like Shedeur Sanders, who has the raw tools, the work ethic, the mobility, the football IQ isn't being prioritized. What does that say about this franchise's ability to develop anyone? And more importantly, who's responsible for that failure? The dots are already there. Stefanski has a reputation for being conservative with young players. He leans on veterans. He sticks to what's safe. And that mentality? It might work when you're coaching mid-tier talent or trying to survive a season. But when you have a potential franchise quarterback in your building, that approach turns from cautious to costly. Bobby Musgrave clearly sees that. He didn't just speak to defend a player. He spoke to defend a principle. That development requires trust. That young quarterbacks need support, not just from the quarterback coach and the offensive coordinator, but from the head coach himself. And when that trust isn't there, when the head coach would rather play it safe than bet on potential, you get what the Browns got, a promising player sitting in the shadows while the offense flounders. Let's not gloss over that either. The Browns' offense hasn't been electric. They haven't been unstoppable. They've been looking for a spark. And all that time, that spark was standing on the sideline in a backup hoodie, waiting for someone to look past preseason drills and give him a real shot. That's why Musgrave's comments hit so hard. Because they weren't just emotional. They were logical. This wasn't a protect my guy moment. This was a wake-up call for an organization that continues to let internal politics and coaching philosophy block its own talent pipeline. And the players? They notice. Every rep a rookie doesn't get. Every game he's benched for no reason. Every time someone defends a wrong person publicly. They all add up. It creates division. It creates tension. And it signals to the rest of the locker room that merit doesn't always win. That's the kind of culture that doesn't just stall progress. It kills it. Musgrave's loyalty to Shedeur was about more than just one player. It was a stand against the pattern, against the rinse and repeat cycle of the Browns mismanaging young quarterbacks, against a leadership style that puts narrative above growth. And by going public, he made it very clear. If this team doesn't change, it won't be because no one saw the warning signs. Because there they are, on record, loud and clear. Now the spotlight turns to Stefanski. How does a head coach respond when one of his most experienced assistants indirectly calls out his developmental strategy on live microphones? Does he address it? Does he make changes? Or does he stay silent and hope the offseason erases the noise? Whatever path he takes, the pressure is now real. Because Musgrave didn't just give his player credit. He gave the fans, the media, and the front office a reason to start asking hard questions. Questions like, why wasn't Shedeur given meaningful reps earlier? Why were preseason habits treated like disqualifiers? Why is the offensive coordinator getting praise for player development, while the head coach's name is nowhere in the conversation? And if the Browns want to avoid losing the trust of their fans, and more importantly, their players, they better be ready with answers. Because this isn't just about playing time anymore. It's about the credibility of the coaching staff. It's about whether this organization is truly built to recognize and elevate talent, or just recycle. Shedeur Sanders is still here. He's still working, still showing flashes of what he could be. That's the good news. The bad news? He's had to fight his own team's decisions to get there. And now that the silence has been broken, the ripple effects are just beginning. Because once a coach like Bobby Musgrave steps up and delivers a press conference like that, it forces the entire organization to face a question they've been dodging all year. How did the Browns let this happen? How did a rookie quarterback with elite potential get stuck behind 3 other names on the depth chart? How did a player praised for his toughness, intelligence, and work ethic spend most of the season as little more than a roster placeholder? And how, after all that, is it not the head coach, not the person with the most power in the building, getting any credit for the progress that finally started to show? The answer sits between every line of Musgrave's press conference. They didn't believe in Shedeur. Not really. Not when it counted. Not when the reps were being handed out. Not when the early depth charts were drawn. Not when the offense was struggling and someone had to step in. They chose to believe in what they saw in a few preseason practices. They chose to believe in old school, earn it the hard way philosophy. They chose to believe that development could happen from the sideline. Musgrave is telling us what we all feared, that those choices weren't just miscalculations. They were organizational failures. And it didn't have to be this way. Because when Shedeur did finally see the field, something became clear almost instantly. He belonged. The arm strength, the poise, the ability to move in and out of the pocket with confidence, those aren't things you fake. Those are signs of a player who knows what he's doing, even under pressure. And most importantly, they're signs of a player who is ready, even if the people above him refuse to see it. Musgrave didn't need to attack anyone outright. His restraint made it more powerful. He simply credited the people who actually helped Shedeur grow. He praised Tommy Reed for building offensive packages that played to the rookie's strengths. He applauded Shedeur himself for putting in the hours. But Stefanski? He wasn't mentioned. Not once. And that wasn't just a professional oversight. That was deliberate. Because if the head coach had been involved in supporting Shedeur, had been a visible advocate for his development, had even remotely prioritized him during the season, he would have been mentioned. But he wasn't. Which tells you everything about where Musgrave believes the problem really starts. So now the Browns are dealing with a new kind of PR problem, an internal one. It's not about game performance anymore. It's not about stats. It's about trust. Can players trust that this team will actually invest in their growth? Can assistant coaches trust that development decisions are being made for the right reasons? Can fans trust that talent like Shedeur Sanders won't be wasted because of outdated thinking and positional politics? Because make no mistake, this wasn't just about fourth-string status. This was about who gets a real chance. And Shedeur didn't. Not at first. Not when it could have mattered most. Musgrave's frustration boiled down to something very simple. Shedeur Sanders earned the right to grow. He earned the right to get better with the support of the organization, not in spite of it. And the fact that he still managed to improve, still managed to make plays, still managed to look like the future, says a lot about who Shedeur is, and even more about the structural dysfunction around him. This is what happens when a coach cares more about progress than politics. Musgrave didn't step in front of that mic to make waves. He stepped in because he knows what it looks like when quarterbacks are mismanaged. He's seen careers stunted. He's seen promise squandered. And he wasn't going to sit back and let it happen again. Especially not with someone like Shedeur, who clearly has the tools to become something special. But here's the catch. Talent only gets you so far. Development takes opportunity. Growth requires trust. And in Shedeur's case, the coaching decisions from the top rob him of both for far too long. The upcoming offseason is no longer just a regrouping period. It's a reckoning. Because if the Browns want to build around Shedeur, if they want to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past, they need to take a long, honest look at how their development pipeline is working, or more accurately, how it isn't. That means accountability. That means asking why the quarterback coach felt the need to go public just to advocate for a player doing everything right. That means asking why the offensive coordinator is being praised for doing a head coach's job. And it means asking how many more young players are being sidelined, misjudged, or ignored because someone at the top has already made up their mind. The Browns can't afford another wasted talent. Not now. Not when the window for success is so small and the expectations are higher than ever. Shedeur is more than a backup storyline. He's a barometer. If the organization fails to support someone this promising, what happens when the next talented rookie walks through that? So where does this leave us? Right back at the question Bobby Musgrave asked without even asking it. Are the Browns serious about developing their future or just surviving the present? Because if they're serious, the fix isn't just about promoting Shedeur up the depth chart. It's about tearing down the outdated systems and power structures that kept him there in the first place. It's about putting development over politics, performance over perception, and potential over pride. You've heard what Musgrave had to say. You've seen what Shedeur can do. Now it's on the Browns to decide whether they want to keep ignoring the obvious or finally do right by the quarterback they almost buried. Let us know what you think. Was Musgrave out of line or long overdue? Should Shedeur have started sooner? What does this mean for Stefanski's leadership and the team's long-term vision? Drop your thought in the comments. Hit that like button if you're done watching talent get benched for no good reason. And subscribe for more updates as the situation unfolds. Because with this much tension under the surface, something's going to break. It's just a matter of when.